There are minimal, arguably insignificant differences between how a natty versus how someone geared up should train.
If you're natural, you have to be close to failure. If you're geared, ideally you should still be close to failure. But if you're not, you'll probably still grow, especially if you're on a lot of stuff.
There is no you-know-who on this show.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, yeah.
Do natties have to train harder than those of us who are geared up? I know a lot of geared up guys who get pretty upset when natties say they train harder. Is the geared up crowd lazy in the gym, or are natties just mad because geared up bros are bigger than they are? Here's the big question though. Is Geoffrey Schofield, AKA GVS, a fake natty? Don't go anywhere. I'm gonna ask GVS these questions and a lot more on this episode of Between Two Dumbbells. I'm your host, Skip Hill, and I'm bringing over 40 years of bodybuilding experience to the table, including over 24 years of online coaching. I'm joined today, as usual, by my co-host, Dr. Marv, aka The Educated Meathead. And we're also joined by fitness coach and social media influencer, Geoffrey Schofield, who you might know simply as GVS. He's authored several fitness books and created training programs, including Ravage and Mass Impact. Ladies and gentlemen of the audio radiance, you're Between Two Dumbbells. I'm looking for a debate today, guys. I posit that there are minimal, arguably insignificant differences between how a natty should train versus how someone geared up should train if optimizing their training is the objective. Professor, what say you?
Oh, there's definitely more similarities than differences. And I think often the problems that geared lifters run into are things that most naturals probably won't. And I also say that a lot of gear usage kind of expands the range of what will work, especially if someone is not a super advanced IFBB pro. I think at the highest level of both natural and enhanced training, they're pretty similar. But if someone is taking gear pretty early in their training career, then I think it opens the doors up to a lot of stuff that just won't work for any natural lifters. So there's more similarities than differences, but there certainly are differences in a lot of cases.
I can't disagree with that. I do think that, and this is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the nuance because, I mean, let's be fair. Guys who are geared up can get away with making a lot of mistakes. They can do a lot of things wrong and they're going to advance very quickly. In fact, it has always been my argument for people to not use gear early for that reason, because it kind of forces you when you are natural to fight for those gains, to fight to learn not only optimizing training, but even nutrition, supplementation, things like that. Look, does anybody really have to supplement much of anything if they're on gear? I'd say no. I mean, you have gear here and you got supplements do this much over here. Come on, save your money. Buy more gear, that type. This isn't a pro gear podcast, but at the same time, I think that being truthful and kind of pointing out the differences between the two, that's really, really what I'm looking for. Dr. Marv, do you have, throw something out there? I'm just going to keep you awake.
Correct. Yeah. So I'm coming off of an amazing week, working the Strongman games and making house calls to Olympians, which was awesome, but I got like 20 hours of sleep over the course of a week. So I might get a little loopy. So bear with me.
And it's past your bedtime, if I'm not mistaken.
It is way past. Yeah. So caffeines and hopes and dreams I'm running on. Big picture, I agree with a lot of what both of you said. I also think if somebody introduces gear too early, I personally think it's going to limit how far you could go, because I think somebody should, if they're going to make the decision, which is a personal decision, you've got to progress as far as you can naturally before bringing that in. Because if you don't know how to grow naturally, You're not going to maximize it. And I think it would actually limit how far you could go. Like it'll kind of prevent your peak from being as good as it can be. And then obviously there's a bunch of things that change when we introduce gear, right? Like even when you get off of gear, you're still going to have an advantage with the natural lifter because you're going to have more nuclei and muscle cells for years and years on end, right? So there's a bunch of stuff, but that should be, if somebody chooses, that's the cherry on top. You got to build your foundation, which is
Okay, let me ask you guys this then, just
about.
to get a little bit of like an idea. And I'll give my experience first. I mean, I started training at 14. I've been training for 41 years. I'm 55 and I look 95 from the head up or from the neck up. I might arguably look only 53 from the neck down. But anyway, I have years of experience being natural. And I think it's funny because in the bodybuilding industry, people don't know that because I've been pretty open and transparent, about my use. I don't pull any punches. I'm not proud of it, but at the same time, it's something that I'm fair in, being transparent about. I did about 3 cycles when I was a teenager and I didn't do anything for 10 years. So until I was about 30, outside, and look, I'm not claiming natural status prior to being 30, to be clear. I don't want to be trolled, for 100 comments about how that's not natural. I know it's not natural, but I do want to just be clear that, when I was 16, again, I'm not proud of it, just being honest. 6-week cycle of testosterone at 200 milligrams. Okay, yes, it's a cycle. I'm not natural. But I would argue that I wasn't putting out I was putting out more than that naturally at 16. But nonetheless, I'm trying to just paint a picture here. And I did a couple cycles when I was 19. From then on until I was 30, natural. I was not taking gear. We'll go with that. So I do have a lot of years. It's not like I came out of the gates with guns ablazing. I was a young kid. And look, if I could have afforded it when I was in my 20s, but we were raising kids. We raised 4 kids. So they had to eat. I could have. Plenty of people have taken money, taken food off their plates to be able to pay for it is bodybuilding after all, right? All about me. So I have years to compare, in contrast, the training and the progress at that time versus when I did step on the gas when I was 30 years old. So Geoff, what is your background? I mean, clearly you're not geared. And I don't say that from a visual, just because I did my due diligence before you came on.
Yeah, so Lifetime Natural, I don't have any experience directly with PEDs. And I think that's worth highlighting because I think some of the best sources for this discussion are people who were natural and then they went enhanced, and so they can compare it directly. So, cards on the table, I am Lifetime Natural, so I don't have like the personal experience, but I have talked to a lot of people who have been on both sides. I have been observant about how there maybe are differences. And, people talk about, the pump. Natural lifters don't really seem to prioritize the pump very much, whereas often it is a very strong proxy on the enhanced side of things. I think Jay Cutler was like, the pump and the soreness, of course, like those are the most important things. Whereas natural lifters, you rarely hear people talk about that. It's more about performance and progression rather than like, I felt good in the workout, or I felt a really good mind muscle connection, or a squeeze, or a contraction. And I do think that these things can have some value on the natural side of things. If someone says, mind muscle connection doesn't matter at all for a natural lifter, it probably does, right? Like if you can't feel your lats working at all when you're doing a movement, it's probably somewhere else. So it's like in your rear delts, or it's in your traps, or it's in your spinal erectors or somewhere. And so, technique matters on both sides. I think volume matters on both sides. I do think that proximity to failure is absolutely essential for a natural lifter. You have to be close to failure. You have to be training really hard. You have to be getting those slowing, grindy reps. And those matter on the geared side as well, for sure. But I have seen a number of enhanced lifters where the reps don't ever seem to slow. It's just like sort of squeezy mind muscle connection, pumping, fluff and pump style training, and they get really big from it.
Yeah.
And
that's where I want to go. Because I want to get to that failure, RIR, RP. I want to dig into that real quick. Dr. Marv, do you have?
I want to jump in. Yeah, I want to jump in. So, I agree. The enhanced or the geared, whatever word you want to use, they really focus on the pump. Well, you're going to get a pump if you choose to go down that route because your blood's going to be thicker. So that's going to happen automatically. I will say though, people, I think you were kind of alluding to this, Geoff, and I agree. A lot of people will use the drugs to hide terrible training and they chase a pump and they're using that as their mechanism of growth versus proper mechanical tension and volume and everything. So I think a lot of people get in bad habits because, like you said, I could work out like a California pro, right? And just do 30 pump stuff and everything's 4 sets of 8 to 12. There's no grinders and I'm going to get huge because the drugs are doing their thing. When you want to take this as far as you can and you choose to go down that route, well, like we talked about, ideally, you know how to train, you have a mind to muscle connection, you're following progression, and there's a multitude of ways to do so. But I think a lot of people chase the pump when they're enhanced, and that is to their detriment because it's like they forgot, like, how do you build muscle? Mechanical tension. How do you build muscle? Mechanical tension. And how do you build muscle? Mechanical tension, right? So I think that's kind of what you're getting to. And yeah, I would agree. Like, I'm an effective reps guy, which we'll talk about in a sec. I'm not black and white like you know who is, right? But I still think that is my favorite model for
There
knowing
is no
when
you
you're
know
doing a
who
set.
on this show.
Yeah.
No.
Well, so
no.
okay, so
Name
so like
names.
Chris Beardsley, I believe Borge Fagerly came up with it first, but Chris Beardsley's pretty cut and dry, only do 5 or 6 reps. You know, Paul Carter, calcium ion channels are going to explode.
I googled dogmatic and his name came up.
Correct. Both of them are the biggest offenders of that in my mind. So yeah, but the training principles should apply, and if you don't have the training principles, you better use a bunch of gear if you want to get big because you're not going to get there any other way.
Well, that's where I want to go. I want to go with the intensity first because, well, I got so much running through my brain, but I want to hand it off to you, Geoff, first, because you touched on something. You were talking about, and you know, in watching your videos and things, and I'm careful because if I watch a video that is 4 years old, you may have an evolved, opinion or perspective that has changed since then. So I don't take what I saw in your videos and what you've said in the past as, that it's biblical, that it's in commandments or anything like that. But where do you see the intensity? If you compared the intensity from a natty trainer to a geared trainer, what do you see?
Well, I think this is where geared, you're talking about like the highest level guys, they all know how to train hard.
Right.
Like Ronnie, like if you look at the best of the best, they know how to train hard.
Well, I don't want to take them out of the equation a little bit because they're the 1%. They're the 1%ers. They're the genetically gifted. You know, I'm originally from Colorado. I got to train next to Phil Heath. In fact, I was going to the Colorado State 2003. And this guy Phil Heath is going to compete. I'm like, oh yeah, we'll see how that goes. And I saw him. I'm like, oh shit! Like, okay, this isn't even going to be close. So I know the genetic predisposition and that sort of thing all too well. So I'd like to put them over to the side only and let's talk about the viewers for a minute. How many of the viewers are going to be genetically gifted, or is there a Phil Heath listening to it? Probably not. Top pro Keown, these guys who they arguably could do everything half right, and they're going to still be badasses. So we're going to put them over to the side for a second.
Yeah, so I think if you're natural, you have to be close to failure. If you're geared, ideally you should still be close to failure. But if you're not, you'll probably still grow, especially if you're on a lot of stuff, right? So, and this is where, again, if you're natural, you're just not going to grow. And so you have to learn how to do that, right? You have to know how to manipulate your intensity, your volume, your frequency, exercise selection, technique, all these things, nutrition to a certain extent, sleep, lifestyle, stress, like all these things, any one of them could be the limiter for your progress, right?
I agree with that.
Doesn't matter how, if everything is perfect, but your sleep is bad, you might just not grow. If everything
and that's
is
where
perfect,
I say the minutia matters. Sometimes it really does matter. And especially I think, and because I agree with you, the natty, everything has to be so much more precise, I think, because again, you're not going to get away with as much. I would argue this though, just in defense of the gear guys. Once you're on gear for a while, and I mean, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, yeah, in there somewhere as an example, there does come a point where those gains are getting pretty minimal. Not everyone wants to stand on stage in a thong, but they might want to look like they do. You might be thinking, this guy is old. How could he possibly get me into my best condition? Teach me how to optimize my training and save me time while doing it. Let's discuss your goals for 2026. 25 years of online coaching, 41 years of training, 35 years of competing. That's a lot of experience and wisdom. Reach out and let's discuss your goals. So then, if you haven't learned that stuff and you haven't paid attention to the details and the minutia, you're going to have to go back to square one and you're going to have to wipe the slate clean. Let me try again. Slate clean and start all over again. When if you can learn that from the beginning, even just we were talking about the mind muscle connection, form, mechanics, things like that from the start. It puts you so far ahead of the game to continue to maximize gains, natural or geared. But I'm with you so far. I'm looking for something to not argue, but to debate and be like, nah, I don't feel that way, but I haven't found it yet.
Yeah. So I think when it comes to geared, there is still homeostasis, right? So if you're on a certain amount, eventually, you're going to plateau, right? It'll be higher than if you're natural, but you're still going to plateau. And this is where, if you're natural, you don't have any of that. You don't have like this much gear and this much gear and this much gear and this much gear. You just have zero gear. And so you have to manipulate the other variables. If someone goes from natural to taking a lot of gear, suddenly the training variable is almost like just go in and move and you're going to grow. You start taking grams and grams of stuff out of nowhere. And that's a lot of teenagers nowadays, right? They just start.
Well, the game has changed big time. It really has.
God.
And it's incredibly disappointing to see because I don't make any bones about it. I'm in the gear side. But at the same time, I train a lot of natural competitors. I have a lot of respect for anybody who can stay natural because I'll look at you, Geoff, and I'll be like, bro, like I know the dark side has whispered to you, come over, just come over here. And I mean, I think you'd be crazy to be like, I've thought, like, what would it be like? And I'm not pinning you down. I'm not asking. I'm saying it's a natural thing to question because, it's like, And then for whatever your reasons are, and I might ask you about that later, that you decided to stay that route and stay on the path that you are. And I think that's great. But here's another argument. The natural competitor, though, too, over time and age, actually loses hormone levels. Where at least if you're geared, you got control of it. You can increase it. I'm fighting my age. I'm not going to lie about it. I want to stay or feel, not stay. I want to feel younger. And with hormone levels, clearly that can offset it a little bit. So you can't do that when you're natural. You have to deal with then that precision. Then it becomes nutrition. Then it becomes making sure I'm not overtrained, which recovery I want to get into as well. All those things matter so much. Because it's a little bit harder to overtrain when you're geared. You can still do it. You can definitely overtrain. I have an issue with the part of the industry that says you can't overtrain with gear. It's like, my God, I've driven myself into the ground before. It is harder to do, but we can get to that in a minute. I want to ask you about the RIR-RPE. We're talking about training to failure. Do you see any value in the RIR-RPE method? And if so, what does it look like?
On some movements, yeah. Like if you're doing a barbell back squat or something. I do think it is telling that it originated from powerlifting because it makes a lot more sense on there where you don't necessarily want to have a really slow, grindy rep. You want to keep the bar speed good. You want to keep your technique on point. You maybe want to get in more touches on the bar so you can have more practice, but not necessarily like wear yourself out, particularly when you're super strong. You don't necessarily want to be grinding out squats and heavy deadlifts and stuff like that. But for bodybuilding, I might occasionally keep a rep in reserve on some movements, but not that often. And it is very exercise dependent, right? So yeah, maybe a squat, um, occasionally like a deadlift or something. But for me, if an exercise forces me to keep a lot of reps in reserve because it's like inherently risky or failure would be really bad, like a barbell bench press, you don't really want to fail that, right? Especially if
Right.
you're usually trying alone. Um, but if an exercise you say, oh, I can't go within 3 reps of failure on this one, probably not a good exercise for hypertrophy, right? Like,
Yeah.
why are you doing that if you're going with hypertrophy?
Right.
So it's probably just a bad selection for that. So I typically like to go pretty close to failure and sometimes even, quote unquote, beyond failure with like partials or, I mean, if I'm doing a set of pretty much any rowing movement, I'm doing partials. Like
Okay.
that's
All
just,
right.
it's going to be failure plus partials, perhaps many partials, just due to the exercise allowing that. Same with like a calf raise. I'm going to be beyond failure with partials after that. It's just sort of, I don't even consider failure to be like the end of the set. It's kind of like the beginning, and then I work down as the range of motion decreases, still with maximum effort and intent to
Sure.
try to get more range of motion. I just can't because I'm beyond failure. If I'm doing like a shrug, that's going to be with partials. Pretty much anything that is most challenging in the contracted position, it's going to get a few partials
Okay.
just because.
That sounds fair. I'm with you so far. Let me ask you this: is it safe to say? I think both of you will agree on this, but if you take all your muscle groups and you put them in a row, calves have to kind of sit over here away from everything else because you have to train them so ridiculously different with such an intensity level that I always laugh and say, forget about counting reps. Just see how much discomfort you can tolerate and then shake them out and go back another 20 seconds later and shake them. And you can brutalize them. And typically, they're going to recover faster than any other muscle group in your body. Not if you just come at it, I guess, with 30 sets one day and you haven't done that in a month. But, I don't recommend that. But they recover so quickly and they're just so used to being worked that they almost are kind of out there on their own. Now, I think you've used this term before with fatigue ratio playing into which exercises you're going to go to failure as far as that exertion level and things like that. And I think we're on the same. It's funny because part of the reason I wanted to have you on, I was surprised by how many parallels we had. I'm like, do I know this guy? Like, have I talked to him before? Have I watched his content? And I don't get enough time in training my clients and stuff to be able to watch too much content. But when I saw it, I thought, man, I gotta take a look at this. I gotta talk to this guy. Fatigue ratio plays a part, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, you can't compare the fatigue from, say, a leg extension and a squat. Like
Right.
they're different. And the issue is when you try to treat them the same. If you try to treat your leg extension like a squat, you're going to be under training. If you try to treat your squat like a leg extension, doing drop sets and partials and stuff, who does partials on a squat? Like you go to
Right.
failure and then now you're doing like bottom range of motion part. Like it's just
Right.
you have to use the right tools and the right mentality for the job. Otherwise, and this is where people maybe they speak in blanket statements a little bit too much, right? They say like, how many sets per week do you do for quads? Well, like, what is it, right? How close is it to failure? Which exercises?
Right. Yep.
Even just the mentality of it. Like you see some people where you see them do a set, and then the set stops, and you're like, well, where's the rest of it? Like, no wonder you're doing 30, 40 sets. Like,
Well,
it's
is
sets of
that
that.
not another argument though too, taking into consideration the fatigue factor because there's injury. There's the risk of injury. If you're doing drop sets on extensions, do you really run the risk, at least compared to, a leg press or a regular squat? I mean, a regular squat obviously being at the top of the list, or even a deadlift for that matter. There just comes a point where if that fatigue sets in and you have anything in that chain that goes weak and there's a fatigue that then your mechanics change and you could be out for 9 months. Yeah, you're not
Yeah,
making a lot of progress if you're recovering, if you take 6 to 9 months to recover from an injury that you didn't need to get either. And then the
yeah.
question becomes this, and I was surprised by this. I'll be the first to admit. Dr. Marv knows this. I was surprised to hear that the RIR, RPE research says that it's the same as training to failure. I didn't want to hear that. And I still have a problem with it. I'm wondering where you stand. Hey, look, research is research. Don't get me wrong, but I do try to pick it apart. I try to go, well, how many variables are you controlling here? Because you can't control all of them. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think some of this is on beginners. And yeah, I think if you're a beginner, you're so sensitive to the stimulus that it's like, yeah, you'll grow from really far away from failure. As long as you're putting in a good effort. It doesn't need to be a fantastic effort, just even a reasonable effort, and you'll still grow. I think on trained lifters, maybe, but yeah, I tend to prioritize failure. I think maybe what's going on is that rarely do you have videos of these studies. Sometimes you do, and on the ones where, because 2 RIR on some movements is still really hard. If you do 8 reps with
Sure.
your 10 rep max on a squat, anyone who says that is easy, well, it's probably not 2 RIR, right? It's
Right.
probably
Yeah.
even more. So I think a genuine 2 RIR on some movements, it is very, very useful and stimulatory. Um, Again, but I do prioritize failure. And I think some of the more recent meta-analyses have shown, okay, maybe there is some benefit to going closer to failure. Because, yeah, I saw that a few years ago. 2 RIR, 0. It's like the same thing. My
How
gut
do you come
instinct
up
is
with
like,
that?
no,
How
it's
do you
not.
know what that is? That's something that I just look at and I go, and Dr. Marv, we've had these conversations as well. I'm going to go on record and I'm going to say, and kind of sounds like what you're saying, there's going to be more research that is
Yeah.
going to show that there's going to be more hypertrophy closer to that failure mark. Now,
Yeah.
let me real quick. I do want to ask you this: define failure, because I have my definition, and it's kind of like, well, what's natty? What's failure? What we have these different definitions sometimes. How do you define it? Does the bar not move? Like, does it have to stop?
So in terms of failure, yeah, everyone sort of has their own definition. I mean, let's say you're doing a lat pull down with a wider grip overhand, and you want to standardize the reps to where you touch your chest. Okay, the minute you can't touch your chest, you can't quite get that last little bit of retraction, and you missed half an inch of the range of motion. To some people, that is failure, right? That if they want to be scientific about it, standardize it. The minute you miss even a tiny little bit of the last part of the range of motion, the set's done, right?
Right.
And I think a lot of the research, maybe that's why the volumes are so high, like they're doing 30, 40, 50 sets per muscle group per week and still seeing benefits, perhaps because the definition is very strict, which I don't necessarily have a problem with, because if you're doing science, you kind of have to standardize stuff.
Yeah.
That's the point. You want to isolate one variable rather than just having every person's failure be all over the place. For me, I would allow several reps where I couldn't quite get the bar all the way down on a lat pull down, right? So with partial sort of quote unquote, is it beyond failure, or is
Right.
it just sort of my definition of failure is a little bit beyond like the strict scientific definition? And then some people said there's no such thing as beyond failure, right? Because the muscle hasn't failed.
Right.
I guess if you tear a muscle, then
Yeah,
like
it failed.
it's failed.
True
Yeah.
failure. If you don't rip it from the bone, yeah. Well, and that was my point in asking the question. What is it? Where is that point? With a bench press or something, it's pretty obvious. If you can't lock out, okay, you
Yeah.
failed. I consider it to be, and you make it's a real good example with the back, because what happens is the reps just get shorter and shorter, and you go until you just can't move the damn bar.
Or you
But
cheat. Yeah.
my definition, after just it's kind of just within my own milieu of training, is if I finish a rep and I know that I can't get another rep, I'm not going to take it down and just eat it. And some people will argue and they'll be like, well, you don't know. Look, we can play the mental games all you want. I've been training for 41 years. I've done crazy shit. I've done sane shit. I've done things that people don't ever want to do. The only thing I haven't done, Dr. Marv, what is it? I haven't puked in a bucket.
Yeah, correct.
It's the one thing that I think I just wish I did once so I could say I did. but I have literally been to the point of wanting to pass out, but I have never thrown up, so I don't have that badge. But the point is I know where that is. When that last rep is crawling and I'm keeping the mechanics no matter what. And there are times where I will even take, let's say, like a pack squat or a pendulum. Once you break that and you know where that sticking point is, once you break it and you know that that's the last rep, I'll slow it down from there and almost kind of just cruise into the top, knowing I might as well milk it, because the second I bend my legs to go back there, bend my legs at the knee, I'm not coming out of the hole. And then it comes back to, where are you training with somebody? Are you not training with somebody? So those definitions, I think that's how I justify it. Because if I'm training with somebody, they can pull me out. I don't have a fear of failing, but I do have a fear of, oh, I just crushed my spine and I can't get out. And I'm yelling, help me, that type of thing. It doesn't do much for my manhood.
Yeah, this is where there's a practical sense to it, right?
Right.
Like if I'm bench pressing, I'll go to the point where it is a grind. And yeah, with experience, if you could have gotten another one or not. And if someone leaves a comment saying, oh, you could have gotten one more, but you couldn't have, like, I kind of just ignore that at this point. Because if that kind of thing gets under your skin, I think it's a sign that, like, maybe you could have gotten another one.
Right. Good point.
I mean, it's just,
Right.
I would maybe still call that 0 reps in reserve rather than failure, because you didn't actually fail.
Good
But
point.
I think from a practical sense, like, I don't think there's anything special about failure. I think there's something special about a slowing bar speed and maximum effort. But just because you failed, I don't think that last failed rep, where like you're doing a hack squat and it goes up a little bit and then you go back down, I don't
What do you
think that's
gain from that? Is kind of my question. It's like, all
yeah,
I
it's
gain is I have to have somebody pull me out from underneath it. That's about it.
So a hill I'm going to forever die on, and I'm assuming you're the same way, Geoff. I'm big on, don't even think about RIR till you've been training for at least 3 years, preferably 5, right?
Yeah.
I would prefer the first 5 years to be progressive overload. We all think we're intense, but you should look at your workouts even a year ago and laugh and be like, good Lord, that was pathetic. And I think that's a very important skill for everybody to learn, whether they're natural, whether they're enhanced. I have certain frameworks of how I like to set somebody up for the big picture of what you should focus on, for the first couple of years. What do you typically, how do you approach that with somebody's coming to you of like, hey, I've never worked out before? How do you kind of guide them through that process?
Yeah, so I would say the first thing is technique rather than like rah, 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 let's push hard to failure. Because if you're pushing really hard, but your technique is all over the place, you're either going to get hurt or it's just not going to be as effective, right? Or maybe both, right? So I would say technique is first, and it's a little bit individual at times. Sometimes I'll see a little bit of a quirk that someone is doing, but it seems to work well for them. Like I was coaching this other guy, and his overhead extensions, as he went down into the bottom position, he would like really kind of flare back and almost get like a little bit of lats involved. And I asked him about it. He said, oh, it just feels really comfortable. I feel a nice stretch actually in the triceps. I was like, all right, cool. As long as your shoulders and your elbows feel good. It's a little bit unusual, but there's nothing inherently wrong with it. So yeah, technique, it is a little bit individual, but if I see someone and we're squatting and we're trying to build quads and the hips are shooting way back, stuff like that, it's just not going to be as productive, right? So I'd rather maybe do a front squat or elevate the heels, or just maybe a Smith with the feet a little bit more forward. So technique and just biomechanics, I guess, more generally speaking, putting the tension where you want it, that is first. Then we're going to work towards failure, because if someone has never lifted, you don't necessarily need to be as close to failure, at least right away.
Yeah,
like you
I
should
agree
still
with
be
that.
able to progress.
You look at a dumbbell, you grow in the beginning.
Yeah.
You look at it.
You need to brush your teeth with both hands. I'm brushing my teeth when I do this. Okay.
That's the
keep
intro.
jokes.
That's the promo. That's the promo.
There's the soundbite.
That's the
I'm brushing my
promo.
teeth. Anyway, I was making the point I used to do that. I was at OCD when I was a teenager. If my mom made me vacuum, I was going to count I didn't want to get on the Olympia stage, and I was going to be on the
Wow.
Olympia stage when I was 23. I couldn't get up there with one pec bigger than the other, that type of thing. So, and I became quite ambidextrous. I'm being honest. I could throw a baseball both arms. I can kick a ball. I can bat left and right. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I don't know. But coming back to the left-right ambidextrous thing, with the beginners too, and Dr. Marv, I'd ask you this: you're teaching. I mean, you have to work on coordination too when you're starting, and you have beginners. I think you can build the strength for essentially the prime movers, but the stabilizing muscles just really aren't. So then you have those things where, like, you see this in beginners where they bench and then, like, the left locks out before the right, and then the left locks, and then as they get more tired, that they have that side that is, not their dumb exactly, not, and they're going to fight for that rep. I give them, an A plus for effort, but that's just some ugly shit, and you're asking for trouble at that point because you have those imbalances, and if that continues, all you're going to do is you have an imbalance, so you're going to continue to keep the imbalance until the strength gets so high that it causes something to rip or tear or be injured. So I think those early stages are important to be able to balance that strength, the coordination, stabilizing muscle. That's why I think the free weights in the early, it's great that we have all these machines, but for beginners, I don't know if that's a great idea at all. So are
Yeah,
we on the same page, Dr.
I'm
Martin?
big on, yeah, mostly if you don't have injuries. Before I even started lifting, I'd already had 8 surgeries. So my story's unique and it sucks, but it is what it is. Performance chiropractic and sports medicine in the Houston Bay Area, telemedicine and nutrition coaching all over Texas. And if you're not in Texas, don't worry. You still do consults through the educatedmeathead.com. Where you also find workout programs, seminar recordings, and online courses. I think in the beginning, you should be 70 to 80% free weight, the rest machine. And then as we progress and you get more advanced, you start, getting injuries, stuff happens, wear and tear, then that ratio could change to, 50-50. But I think those who don't do free weights in the beginning, like you said, you're not getting the coordination you want because you're not going to have this quick motor learning, right? Movement patterns are going to be harder. Your stabilizers aren't going to be there. Also, you're not going to be very resilient to injury because you're relying on a machine to give you stability. Usually in the straight up and down plane, you twist or side bend, you're going to blow out something. So I think in the beginning, mostly free weights other than like leg curl machines. And even though I love a lying dumbbell leg curl to teach somebody to actually use their hamstrings in a curl, but more free weights in the beginning. I agree with Geoff, learn technique, then start learning to push. Also, I'm a big believer, every exercise is a skill, right? What does Bruce Lee say? The 1,000 versus 10,000, right? Like, keep your exercise selection simple in the beginning and master it. I don't care if somebody's got a freaking goblet squat for their only squat movement for the first 4 months. Fine. Like, get proficient, build the baseline, and then go from there. Right. Yeah, that's my personal stance. But I think that the injury resiliency is the thing that nobody thinks about. Right. And then especially with newbies, well, I could put 3 plates aside on this row machine, but I'm struggling with like a 50-pound one-arm dumbbell row. What are they going to do? What did I do? You know what I did, right? So I can't fault them for it. Yeah.
Well, and I even wonder too, I mean, we're talking about beginners, but let's kind of fast forward. Let's say someone like myself who has settled into more, I still do a lot of free weight stuff. I think more than the average person. But it's not a lot because the technology and the advancement in equipment is just so good that I can stay away from, oh, I have a vulnerable lower back. So now I've got the option of belt squatting and pendulum and, things that, look, back in my day, we had pendulums. I had a very well-equipped gym, but we hung our bags on it because it said glute and quad. And we're like, oh, that's a sissy machine. Anything that said glute on it. This was the mid 2000s. Nobody did any glute work. I mean, you were just not a man if that's what you did. So it's kind of funny now that we did that. And then years later, I'm like, wow, this pendulum is the best thing to come along. I'd have traded these hacks out for these years ago. What was I thinking? So the equipment has advanced so much. And, hammer strength is still great, but, we have all this new Panada and things like that. And I think that someone like myself who does more machine training and less free weight training, especially when it comes to lower body from the lower back issues, things like that. I always laugh and say, if someone takes off with my wife's bag, see ya. I'm not even gonna think to run after them because I'm gonna screw up something in my hip. I'm gonna tear a glute medius. And I'm gonna have an M. I'm trying not to laugh about it, but a lateral cruciate ligament that's gonna go because everything I've done is linear. It's just forward or backwards. There's nothing to the side. So I think of my clients and I think of their, as an example, someone who might be 40 years old. They played a pickup game of basketball. As soon as I read that, I'm like, oh, I know what's coming. You haven't moved laterally with any type of explosive movement in how long? But you don't feel old yet because you're only 40. I'm not going to do it because I know better. But when I was 40, I certainly would have thought, oh, yeah, I can do that. No, bad idea. So it's not just a young newbie thing. It can also be, let's be realists here. You haven't moved that way in a while. So you got it on both ends of the spectrum, I think.
Yeah, this is where you because I did get into the sort of optimal movements where everything is lined up and you're using like these fibers. And I think in some situations, especially when you're more advanced, that can be fantastic, especially for a lagging muscle group. Like if someone has been doing pull-ups for a long time and their like lower lats just are not really budging, they're probably never going to budge from pull-ups, right?
Right.
And so you might need something a little bit more specific, a little bit more isolated to bring up that area. But what a lot of people don't realize is that you have to put back in what you took out. So let's say you had been doing squats and deadlifts and these big movements, and then you're like, oh, optimal movements. And you start doing like feet low on the leg press, right? Where it's very quad focused. Okay, well, you're missing adductors, you're missing glutes, you're missing like
Okay.
lower back, you're missing
Yeah, I
the
see what
core, you're missing all that bracing. You're maybe even missing some upper back. Like if you've been doing a bunch of front squats, that hammers the upper back,
hmm
and like a leg press just can't do that.
Right. That's a good point. I didn't know where you were going there. So I kept my mouth shut. I listened. Okay, let me shift gears just a little bit. And I want to talk about, because I heard you touch on periodization. And I'm paraphrasing, but you essentially said something along the lines of that is more for strength training and I agree, from a powerlifting standpoint. But what I mean by periodization is more about, say, deloads slash cruise weeks, that type of thing. As far as backing off, where are you in your with your ideology as far as is that a thing for you? What does that look like? What are your thoughts on that?
So it is a little bit of a heavy-handed approach to fatigue management. But sometimes it might make sense. Like if someone just says, "Hey, I feel really wiped out," or like stress is high, fatigue is high. I think just say, "Okay, well, let's reduce volume this week and maybe even keep a few reps in reserve." Like I think that's totally fine. I mean, if you do a week of that compared to training hard, yeah, like you're going to reduce the majority of your fatigue. And so I think it can work really well for that. Or even just like an intro week. It's a bit of a different mentality of, right? Like one is, okay, we're going to reduce fatigue, we're going to deload here. The other one is like, okay, we're entering a new block, therefore we want to take it easy to kind of
Okay.
learn the movements or to get some momentum. It might effectively be the same thing on paper, but sometimes I'll be more likely to say, okay, this is an intro week, just because people feel like they're building towards something rather than like reducing the fatigue from what they just did. So I think they're called pivot weeks sometimes as well, where okay, let's we're entering something new. We don't want to go all out. I think Alexander Bromley had the analogy of, if you want to drive a car through a pit of mud, you don't start with your car right up against the pit of mud. You back it up for a little while so you can get momentum to
Okay.
drive through it. And he's more strength focused, I would say. But even for hypertrophy, you can't train as hard as possible 52 weeks a year.
Okay,
I've
that's where
tried it,
I
but
was going. Yeah.
yeah, once you get to the ability to push yourself really hard, you no longer need to do that or can do that, right? So if someone says, "Oh, I train all out 52 weeks a year," their all out is not very hard,
Right.
right? Like they're kind of calling themselves out. So the body does need a break. Sometimes the mind needs a break, and so yeah, taking little times where you manage fatigue is a good thing. I will say though, a lot of it personally, I do auto regulate. So I might say, okay, I'm going to do 2 to 3 sets here, or 2 to 4 sets here, or 3 to 4 sets, um, or maybe even like 1 to 3 sets. It might be a really big range. Sometimes I finish a set and I'm just like, yep, that's good. I don't need any more. I got everything I want out of it. A second or a third set would be excessive and just prolonging the recovery. I already stimulated what I wanted to do, right? But sometimes I finish the first set and I'm like, I feel good. I feel like I could do a little bit more. I didn't quite hit what I wanted to hit.
Right.
And this is something where you need that experience to do that. Like in your first year or two, or even 3, 4, 5 years, usually you don't necessarily know what that feels like because you haven't had enough sort of training cycles and you haven't messed it up enough,
Right.
essentially.
Yeah.
Haven't had times where, oh, I
So
did 4 sets and then I went backwards. Oh shit, what happened? So like when you do that enough, or sometimes you do 1 set and you're like, oh yeah, that's good, but then you still can't progress and like, okay, maybe I should have done 2. So a lot of the instinctive stuff, it is still data driven. It's still based on information. It's just years and years of kind of that wisdom building up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, part of
going
it's
to the main
instinct.
topic, going to the main topic, I want both of your guys' input. Is periodization more important for the natural or more important for the geared?
Ooh.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. You got me thinking.
Because I can make arguments for both.
Yeah.
But I would.
Yeah,
I
that's
would
kind of the way
yeah.
I'm leaning too, because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, when you're geared, you can. I mean, look, it's why pitching rotations, can sometimes be, they can pitch closer together. I mean, that's part of the appeal, of steroid use in baseball and in other sports is the recovery component of it. So you're going to recover quicker. But here's the thing: I use myself as an example. I mean, thank God for gear because I have horrible recovery ability and always have. Even on gear, I'm like, I'm kind of just above the natural, line here as far as recovery. I don't have that crazy good recovery. So, but I think at the end of the day, um, whether you're natty or whether you're geared, you still have to focus. Like you'll have a different level of, recovery, but you still have to focus on that and be able. So it almost becomes this question of, like you were saying, you can auto regulate. I can auto regulate. Dr. Mark, we've been doing this for a long time. But teaching clients to do that, it's very difficult to do because
Yeah.
they don't know what that feedback is and they don't know how to read it and they don't know how to assess it. So it's very difficult as a coach to teach that. And that's where it's like, okay, what do you do? And it sounds like, Geoff, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're kind of like, okay, we're going to stay within this. We're going to push the limit. We're going to train to failure, but we're going to continue to push where I'm going to be a little bit more or tend to be a little bit more proactive with cruises and deloads. I mean, I'm almost like every 6 weeks and then I'll adjust from there. And that's people always say that's so early. Like I'm feeling great. I'm feeling great. You'll feel great when you come back as long as you
Yeah.
don't just not train for the week and eat pizza all the time. If you rest and you're able to pull back, you said Bromley, his mud thing. And I'm listening, I'm like, gosh, I got a better oldism. How about 2 steps forward, 1 step back? I mean, let's keep it. But I mean, it's the same thing, but it's just a different perspective on it.
Yeah.
And that is that pulling back. And I like to do that because, especially being older, the number
So
one thing is the joints. They back off, and you're like, oh my God, I feel like $1,000,000. So there's a lot to unwrap there. It's not a simple decision or a simple topic.
I still want you, Skip, to have to give a enhanced or natural answer. We'll let Geoff talk for a little bit, but you've got to pick a side.
You
All
gotta
three
pick
of us
one?
have to pick a side. All
Okay.
three of us have
All
to pick
right.
a side. I'm going to
Okay.
up the ante.
Okay.
So,
So
Geoff, what are
yeah,
your thoughts?
I would say so. I remember looking at Arnold's pre-contest training plan,
So true.
and his volume went way up pre-contest, and I was thinking, what? Why is your volume going up when you're dieting? And I think we all know how and why.
Right.
It's because the pharma side of thing kind of trumped the dieting side of things.
Mhm.
But if you look at most naturals, your volume is either going to stay the same, maybe when you're starting a diet, and then maybe it dips a little bit as you get leaner and as fatigue creeps up. But if I don't think I've ever heard a natural lifter who's like, yep, starting to diet from a show, doubled my volume. Like it
Right.
just doesn't. You'd be like, well, what were you doing before? Oh, like the anabolic resistance of the diet. I need to do more to punch through that. No, it's like you just because the limiting factor is recovery and when you see Arnold training twice a day and
Mhm.
doing 30, 40, 50 sets of workout. Um, I mean, I've tried stuff like that, and I would say I have better than average recovery because I was a distance runner for 11 years before I started
Mm,
Oh,
lifting,
okay.
which helps, which I think does help considerably. I
yes.
got high work capacity, lots of pillarization. I do think that that plays a role. Um, but even then, once you get lean and you're trying to get leaner, you have to reduce the volume at least slightly, which is a form of periodization, I guess. But I think the main thing is that as a natural lifter, your hormone levels are going to be more or less steady year round. I mean, you could say they dip a little bit during a diet
Right.
as you get leaner, um, but I don't think. I mean, your lifestyle is going to be pretty similar typically. Like a lot of naturals, they live a very sort of monastic lifestyle where everything's and a lot of enhanced lifters, geared lifters do as well, for
Right.
sure,
Right.
especially at the highest level.
Mhm.
Um, but I think more or less things are more static for a natural lifter. I remember a very popular geared lifter. His training plan, it was very periodized, and they would increase the weight on the bar and the proximity to failure and the volume during a training cycle. And that might make
Hmm.
sense if you're increasing the gear as well during that
Yeah.
time. But for a
I don't
natural
know
lifter,
though.
I
Yeah. I'm like,
disagree.
I
doesn't.
Yeah.
want that to happen, but
But
I don't think I've had that
but
happen. But yeah.
people think you go on gear and you have this limitless
Right.
recovery. Like I
Yeah.
remember it was the Mind Pump guys came out with a PED thing because it was supposed to be for guys on gear, and it was ludicrous volume. Where I was like, no, that's not how it works. They were doing two
Yeah,
a day. I'm like, that's not how that works, guys. Like, so yeah. Sorry, I jumped in before Geoff gave us his answer, but there's this misconception of it's, you're the Energizer Bunny. I'm like, no, no, no. And a lot of times, because you're so much stronger than you are naturally, one, you got to be careful of injury, but
there
two,
we go.
your recovery demands go up because you're moving poundages and you're a lot more than you would naturally. So that's why it's not this super easy answer of who it's more important for. It's
For sure.
important for both, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I 100% agree because like on paper, maybe it should help recovery, but you're getting so much stronger, so much faster as well
Mhm.
that,
Oxidative stress goes up,
yeah.
a whole bunch of other stuff goes up, right?
So yeah,
It's
it's
yeah.
it's you recover better, but you're also recovering from more. So yeah,
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you're also, I mean, I think it's important to note too, I mean, you're in a deficit. I remind clients of that all the time. It's like
Mhm.
you're in a not only are you in a caloric deficit, but your caloric output is up as well. Like what,
Mhm.
come on now. I mean, in the old
Yeah.
adage of build the muscle in the off season, hold it, during prep isn't,
yeah,
it isn't, it may seem like antiquated advice, but it's not bad advice either.
Nope.
Because unless you're going to be, your version of Natty throughout the entire off season, which is pretty much TRT these days, there is no off time anymore. And then come on during prep, again, comes back to the genetically predisposed. They may
yeah, the
well
rodent.
do well in a situation like that, but I'm not going to, and most of the viewers aren't going to
Mhm.
either.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and this is where, yeah, natural lifter, you're really just fighting to maintain all the muscle mass you
yeah.
have. Maybe if you had a weak point and you're really targeting it across a 4, 5, 6 month prep, you might be able to add like a few grams there or
Right,
something.
right.
You're not going to pull a Levroni where you grow into a show like that.
Nope.
If you talk to any natural lifter, like, so you're going to be growing, you're gaining weight into your bodybuilding show. No, it's like it's ludicrous. And I've seen geared lifters who recomp into a bodybuilding show.
Mhm.
Like the start of prep and the end of prep, they were the same weight. They just dropped like 10% body fat or something and
Yeah,
filled
you
it
could
back
use
in with muscle.
you could use body weight as a natural bodybuilder to gauge progression going into a show. You cannot as an enhanced.
Right. Good point.
Mhm.
Yep, good
Yeah.
point. I wanna
So
keep talking about the go ahead,
yeah,
go ahead. You're
I'm
gonna
gonna
pin us
say
down to the answer,
we
aren't you?
have to though. We have to. So
Uh,
it's like 51-49, but I have to give an answer because I made these rules up. I will say natural slightly more important. So I'll go natural.
I have to agree. And I don't
Yeah.
like to agree with you, man.
I
I
know.
just
I know.
don't. It
Yep.
pains
Yep.
me.
Yep. Jeff, where are you at?
I'm gonna say periodization more important for geared. I'll be the contrarian
Like it.
here.
There you go.
Yes.
I
There we
appreciate you.
go. Yep. Mhm.
All right, let's do this. As much as I could go for another hour on this. This is
Mhm.
great. But I do want to switch, and I want to ask you a question that it's important to me. I hope it is to the viewers too. But you take a lot of flack. You're a lifetime natty guy, and I said earlier, I have a lot of respect for that. Eh, I just think it would be very difficult to remain natural, if I'm being honest. Maybe if I had better genetics, it wouldn't be that difficult to do. But if I go into the gym natural, it's just not very impressive. Anyway, you've gotten a lot of flack for that. And I don't want to say just like take the state, tell me what you think, but how do you deal with it? And where does it hit? I mean, what are your thoughts on it, I guess?
So I guess it used to bother me more because it was more about, oh, they're calling me a liar.
Right.
It's this weird thing because
Mhm.
they're calling you a liar, which is no fun. Like I take my integrity and my honesty very seriously. It's
Mhm.
literally my middle name, right? Veritas.
Ah, yeah.
Um, so that used to piss me off quite a bit. But I realized that they don't actually know you. They're just seeing a picture of you or a video of you, and then their standards are not as high as some other people, and so they think, oh wait, he's claiming natural. Look at him. Oh, there's no way. And to be fair, I often do post videos and photos under good lighting with the pump, with the
We
good
all do.
angles.
Yeah.
Maybe emphasizing the sweep of the triceps or something. You can't see it. I'm in a hoodie,
The
but
same guys giving you shit are doing the same thing, though. Take 40 pictures, grab the best one,
Hey, you
yeah,
do
and,
blood
and
flow restriction and then you wait 10 minutes, then you take your YouTube thumbnail.
That's why you
I'm-
like that so much.
Yes. What do you think I did in my early 20s? Like, come on now, that's next level. Come on, use your brain.
I didn't like that BFR thing, but now I'm like, I gotta try that.
Yep.
that's the utility of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's like the whole, oh, you're a liar thing, which is no fun. But then it's also a compliment,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
They're saying, yo,
Yep.
you look so good, so impressive that they don't think you're natural, but you
Yep.
are. Oh wow, like that actually is a compliment, right? And then but there's also the third thing is like I kind of feel bad for them because their standards are low. And I guess I get that because especially if someone has been lifting a few years, maybe they're an intermediate now, but gains have slowed down a lot, they might look at like a top elite natural lifter and just think, oh, no way. Like they're so far away. I mean, I
Right.
remember the mid, like if I saw people my height, I'm 6 feet, 183 centimeters. If I saw someone my height and over 200 pounds and lean, it just seems so far away because I was barely scraping like 190, 195 and like the top of a bulk pretty fluffy. But I was only
Right.
like 3 or 4 years into training. Now I'm 11. So like
Mhm.
there's going to be a progression even naturally, even over a long period of time. If you keep learning and you keep pushing and you keep training hard, you're not going to max out at 3 or 4 or even 5, 6, 7, 8 years. It's just not going to happen. I do hear
Right.
that fairly often. You see these charts of muscle growth where it's like year 1, blah, blah, blah pounds, year 2, 3, 4, 5. And then year 5 and onward, it's like half a pound or something like
Mhm.
but that's usually not true. I think even in theory it's not true, but in practice, if you keep learning and you keep training hard and you keep learning new movements
Right.
or learning new biomechanical concepts, like you can keep growing for a long period of time.
Mhm.
I mean, Dr. Eric Helms just competed a few days ago. I think he's 20 plus years into training. In a couple of years of off season, he put on like 4 or 5 pounds of muscle
Oh, he's on
because
gear.
yeah,
He's
because he
totally
doubled
gear.
down
Yeah.
on hypertrophy.
Yeah.
He wasn't training as much for strength anymore, and he's doing a lot of volume, but he's
Mhm.
putting like all his chips on the table
Mhm.
in terms of recovery, in terms of doing like everything he can, effort, obviously, like all these things, and he's still gaining 20 years in.
Yep.
So I think a lot of people, maybe they're not doing everything they can or should to build muscle. They're plateaued at a lower level than maybe they should be. Then they see someone who's like still making gains, 10 years, 11 years
Here
into
it comes.
training, and they're just thinking, oh, no way.
Yeah, but
And
those
that's
people are
kind of
actually
sad.
resourceful and they're figuring it out and they're problem solving, and I have very, very strong opinions on this. I think that the guy who accuses someone of just naturally just assumes someone's on gear and that's their excuse for them being bigger than anybody else or bigger than them is the same person who resents someone having a nicer or bigger house than they have,
Yeah.
more money than they have, a better looking spouse than they have. It's the same person. And it's to me, it's not a people will say, oh, it's jealousy. It's, haters are gonna hate and all those other cliche things. But I think it's more to do with resentment. I think that word fits better. At least it does for what I feel I'm trying to convey. I see resentment, and I said this earlier, I'm gonna say it again. The people who can't and don't resent those who can and do. And what I mean by that is if you're not doing everything you can do to be at a higher level, you should probably shut your mouth. Or you should maybe assume instead of maybe they are on gear. I mean, look, if someone were just playing the I'm natural, I'm a lifetime natural, and they're on gear, that's a douchebag move. I'd be like, oh, bro. But I also a part of that tells me too, it's not any of my business. I don't see someone bigger than me and go, up, he's taking more gear than me. Up, he picked his parents better than me. God, I suck. I'm over here going, more power to you. Like, and I'm no angel. Make no mistake. But that's just the difference in that, I'd even argue and say that those are the same people on viral comments in the viral comment section on social media. It's a cesspool
Yeah.
of weak people. And
Yeah.
I really do think that. I think
So
that
you've
people
been
should be
training
left
11 years, right? Geoff, you
11
said you've been
years and a couple months. Yeah.
that's a
he's just
big
a
number.
young buck, isn't he?
Yeah, but still though, 11 years is 11 years. Like I what have I said, Skip, every podcast this comes up? 10 years. It takes 10 years to
Yeah.
truly build a physique to kind of know where your limit is and starting to
Yep.
get near there, whether you're natural, whether you're enhanced.
Yep.
Right? It takes time. It's not 6 months, right? It's not 90-day boot camp bullshit that we see online.
Mhm.
Um I I agree with you, Geoff. I didn't even think about, the closed versus growth mindset. And that is sad when people lash out
Yeah.
and then accuse you of that. But again, it is a huge compliment. So
Yeah. Actually, this might stir up some conversation. You know who the saltiest ones of all are? It's not the lifetime intermediates who are natural and I look very far away. It's the guys who hopped on gear pretty early,
Sure.
but they still don't look as good as I
yeah,
look.
yeah,
And so in their mind,
yeah.
oh, if they're enhanced and they look that way and I'm not enhanced and I look this way,
Mhm.
they cannot handle that mentally
Yeah.
because it almost like casts a light on themselves of like, oh, I made this decision to go
Mhm.
down this road and he's claiming he went down this other road, but he's farther along. That's where it's like they cannot handle that at all. I've
Who
noticed they're
admit
like
who
the
ad
most
who
aggressive
admits they
ones about it.
suck? Nobody wants to admit that they suck. It's much easier. Yeah, really, that's what you literally have to say to yourself, I'm really not very good at this. You know how many people do that? None. Instead, they're pointing the finger and, oh, this is why. It's kind of sad and it's kind of pathetic, if I'm being honest. That's how I feel about it. And look, I'm sitting over here with mediocre genetics. I've done a ton of gear. I should probably not be healthy right now. And I've done a lot of the things that people who are no longer here have done. I mean, I'm just being transparent. And I'm not very good. So I'm admitting it. Why can't there be more people that just go, you know what? I'm just not that great at it, but more power to you. It just doesn't work that way. And it's kind of let me ask you a direct question that'll make my point, Geoff. How many people have said or called you a fake Natty standing in front of you? Not because of an intimidation factor, but just
Zero.
not
Zero.
one.
Yeah,
Not
none.
one.
None. And part of that is probably because I live over in China and people are, I don't know, they either like let me do my own thing or they're just like too polite to say that. But
They
yeah, I've
wouldn't
gotten,
say it to you here either, though.
yeah. Oh, I've gotten thousands online, in
Of
comments,
course,
threads,
yeah.
and
Of
stuff.
course.
But like in person, zero, literally
Right.
zero. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that says a lot.
The person who trolls you online is going to be like, "Can I get a picture?"
Right.
They are. That's what's going to happen.
People are just weird. It's a social media thing, and we say so many things, and we're so strong when we type. When we just push those buttons and we I told
Alone in the
him.
parents' basement. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. On that note, look, intimate time, Dr. Marv.
Yep.
I think it's time. Geoff
Mhm.
doesn't know. He's like, "What's intimate time?"
No.
Intimate time is where we
Buckle up.
ask the guest. Yeah, exactly. We ask. Let me be more Pacific. I'm gonna roll out a bunch of these right now.
There you go.
No, we ask 10 questions of the guest. We split them, to be fair, between Dr. We have a little competition who has better questions. Well, he doesn't have that competition, but I do. And what we do, here are the rules, or here are the boundaries. We're asking you questions that don't have anything to do with eating chicken and rice, picking up heavy things and setting them down. It's completely away from the bodybuilding industry, and it's just more intimate, if you will. Here's the catch, though. You gotta answer them. You could lie.
Okay.
Nobody will know, but you gotta answer them. You want it first, Dr. Marv?
Sure. All
Take
right.
it.
Question number 1. If you could erase one irrational fear or weird quirk you have, what would it be?
Oh wow.
He goes with the deep ones.
I do. I go deep.
Irrational fear or quirk. I would say probably public speaking. I
Really?
don't do it a ton. And actually, I was a teacher for a long time here in China teaching English, so
Huh.
it's not as bad as it used to be, but still, like, if I'm in like a different environment than usual and I have to give like some kind of talk, I'm not a huge fan of that. So like I'm kind of introverted and shy, so it would be nice. I guess if I could snap my fingers, I would get rid of that. Because here's the thing, like YouTube is a lot more introverted than people realize. Like I've heard people say like, "You're a YouTuber, you must be extroverted."
Yeah.
Well, if you're filming something alone in your house, like that's not an extroverted activity.
Yeah.
People don't realize sort of what it actually is when you're making it versus like, yeah, a few thousand people might see a video, but that's not like what it feels like when you're actually making it. So yeah, I'm a lot more introverted than people think.
So you'd rather be in the room, the first one in the room, and let everybody else come in versus being or walking into a room that's already full of people. I'm the same way. I can relate to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah, you might have answered my question. How did you end up in China? Was it teaching?
Yeah. So originally I was an English teacher for 7 or 8 years. And I liked it. It was enjoyable. It was pretty easy. Like you just get your classes every week and it's less than a 40-hour work week for sure. Especially a few years in, you have all your lessons planned, and so it was it was almost a little bit too easy, and so eventually I was kind of getting like a little bit bored and a little bit antsy, but it was a very comfortable job, I guess. And
Okay.
those are kind of the worst ones where you like it and it's comfortable, but it's not really challenging or stimulating, and you kind of just stay because it's easy.
Right.
So that was probably like years 4, 5, 6, 7 for me. Um, and then eventually I kind of switched out of it, and I'm glad I did. But it took me a few years to kind of like get the balls to actually leave. Yeah.
Okay. Number 3, Dr. Marv.
You get one day with 0 responsibilities, no work, no social media, no expectations. What does your perfect day look like?
Oh man. I would say I probably have lower responsibilities than the average person anyway. Um,
Nice.
like in terms of a job, I kind of do how much I want to do. Obviously, if I have clients, I have to get back to them. But pretty much everyone I work with is someone I enjoy working with anyway. So, and then like, my wife and I don't have kids. That's like a big responsibility that a lot of people have that I don't. Um, so yeah, I would say it wouldn't be that much different from my normal life. Like um, it wouldn't be drastically different. Um, and if it's just me having 0 responsibilities, like my wife would still have to go to work that day. Um, yeah, I'd probably still go to the gym. I like that. I enjoy that. It doesn't feel like work, right? Making content or filming stuff or training. I know some people in the fitness industry where it is a job. It is very much a job
Right.
to them. Like if they're making videos and training, they don't even like to train really. It's just something they're good at and pays the bills. But for me, it's something that I'm going to be training anyway. And so maybe I'll talk about it on Instagram or story or something, or maybe I'll make a video about something I'm interested in. For the past few years, I've been making fewer videos, but all the videos have been stuff that I'm interested in and passionate about, because it's so easy to get burnt out if you make videos for other people. Like
Sure.
I'll get video requests like, you got to make a video about this. I know myself by now to not not do that. Like I need to not. um, so I don't really take video requests. It's mostly just me talking about stuff that I'm interested in and passionate about. So yeah, I would say it would probably be a carbon copy of my normal day, pretty
Fair
much.
enough. And for what it's worth, I don't think you're missing out on not having kids. We've had 4, and I really didn't like any of them anyway. So it's overrated.
I've always wondered that because like um I mean I know you joke, but like most parents are like um yeah, parenthood is the best thing ever. But then they look so tired, and I'm like,
Yeah, they're
I
just
don't
beat
know.
to shit, right? I say that now because we're empty nesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can say
I'm
that
with you,
now.
Geoff. No kids for us. So,
Yeah. You go
yeah.
back 10 years, I'd have been bitching and complaining, but not now.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah,
visit or return to the US, what is the first place you go to eat, and what specifically are you gonna eat?
oh man. There's so many restaurants that I hear really good things about, like Five Guys. Never had Five Guys.
You don't
I
have a
mean,
Five Guys over there?
no,
Whoa.
like there's a bunch of restaurants. I mean, we have like the big ones. McDonald's, KFC are huge here.
Right.
But like a lot of these sort of moderately sized chains or maybe
Mhm.
newer ones. I know The Rock has been to Five Guys for the first time 8 times. Maybe I'll join in and go for the
Yeah.
actual first time. I've heard good things as well. My parents actually live in Florida in Jacksonville, so
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
yeah, so I'd probably visit them and see what maybe you have some suggestions actually for like
Oh,
local.
I might have a couple.
He's your guy.
And
He
I'm
is
not
your
too
guy.
far. I'm not too far from I'm in West Palm. So it's yours, Dr. Marv.
Yep. What's something you wish people understood about you that rarely comes across online?
Um, ooh, I would say I'm like if I'm in a normal face to face conversation, I typically listen a lot more than I talk. Whereas, like, YouTube is more just only you talking. it's a weird thing because I'll get DMs from people who it's almost like they think I'm a very close friend of them,
Mhm.
even if I've never met them. Like I'll get very personal questions um, that like only a really close friend would ask you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like even an acquaintance or a good friend wouldn't,
Yeah.
but like a very close bestie might. I'll get those kind of questions. So I would say it's a weird feeling, right? Because you don't want to be a
Right.
dick about it, right? But it's also a
Yeah.
little bit weird for you. So I would say, yeah, I'm a little bit shyer than most people would realize. Like, so I've had people where I told them I was an introvert, and they're like, "No way!" I'm like, "Yeah, well, because I'm a YouTuber." I don't
Right. He seems so nice. How could he be an introvert?
Yeah.
Did the Chinese people welcome U.S. citizens with fondness, or do they think we suck?
No, I mean, it's interesting because there's like propaganda on both sides,
Yes, there
and
is.
as an American living in China, like I see both. I see the Chinese propaganda
Oh, okay.
on this side of
So I
things,
know we got it.
and yeah, exactly. And I see the sort of American side on that side. I can understand both, um, and you can kind of see it go in waves. Like something
Okay.
bad will happen, Trump will say something wild, and
Mm-hmm.
then it'll ramp up on both. Like one side will ramp up, and then it'll be, and so, but typically, um, Chinese people very friendly, very nice, very welcoming, very supportive of like learning the language as well.
Oh.
Um, to the point where it's like you say anything, like "oh, ni hao, hello," and people are like "whoa, whoa, wow," like they're very impressed by like the
Right.
very basics thing. Um, or using chopsticks, people would be like, you know, um, so yeah, people are very nice, very friendly, very respectful. I think I've gotten in like 2 arguments in 15 years, 14 years. Um, which is partly my personality, but also I think people are very, just respectful and easygoing overall.
Okay.
What is the pettiest hill you will absolutely die on? Like, what's the stupidest opinion you refuse to back down from no matter what?
Ooh.
We know it involves your wife. Be honest.
um,
No one admits to their wife. They're like, nah.
yeah, you got to be flexible in marriage for sure. Um,
Only if you want to
but
stay
Smart
married.
man.
well, but you also can't like you have to be flexible. But if you're so flexible, you're a pushover.
Hmm.
Then like she just won't respect you at all. So my wife's very, very feisty, very strong-minded, strong-willed. And she definitely doesn't take any shit from me. Which is part of the reason why I love her. It's
Right.
I wouldn't want someone who isn't that. But I think sometimes you have to hold the line if it's something important to you,
Mhm.
even if it's an argument. And like
Hey.
I don't like arguing. I'm not really an argumentative person, but sometimes you just need to, right? Like
Hmm.
uh she wanted to buy a car. And Shenzhen has great public transportation. You probably don't even need a car here. So I was like, do we really need a car? And then you know, she got a
Then you
car
got a
anyway.
car. You
Yeah, yeah,
got
yeah.
a car. Get to
Because
the
she
answer.
but like and so but I wasn't like, okay, like anything you said. I was like, no, like
Right.
you gotta say you gotta be logical, you gotta share your opinion. Um but ultimately, it's made her very happy and um so yeah, it's a net positive. And whenever she takes me somewhere, she's like, "See, it's worth it. I'm your beautiful taxi driver." Just like encouraging her.
Nice.
Um, so it's nice in some ways, but at the same time, if your spouse has an idea and you disagree with it, you can't just be like, "Yeah, yeah,
Right. Right.
that's you gotta be able to be honest with them for sure."
Is there country music in China? And if not, why?
Ooh, it's not as common. Yeah, it's not as common as some other genres. Like, there's a lot of pop, and it's usually delayed by a few years.
Oh, okay.
Like, you'll hear sometimes many years, I'll hear NSYNC or Backstreet Boys here, and I'm like, "Alright, well, yeah, about time." Yeah. Like, I'll sometimes hear it in the gym or somewhere else, it'll remind me of my childhood. Like I'll hear Ja Rule or some like really old,
Wow.
Ashanti or something. And I was like, what?
Right.
Okay, huh. I haven't heard that in 20 years. But country music, not often, not as often. It doesn't seem to be much of a thing here.
We got one more piece, right, Marv?
Yep. Here's my favorite one. If someone had to describe your personality using only unflattering YouTube trolling language we just talked about, what would it say?
Fake, natty.
That's where I was going. Yeah.
Narcissist, asshole. Yeah, because a lot of people assume any content creator is a narcissist.
Yeah.
Just because it's like, oh, look at me, and that's certainly true some of the time. And I would say it's at least partially true for anyone who like posts selfies and is like sharing their own journey, because there is like a sort of, I think there's a lot of narcissism in the fitness industry disguised as inspiration.
Whoa!
So someone posts a shirtless photo with like this inspirational quote, just to like disguise it as something. Oh, I'm helping people. No, like
Right.
some people really like that attention. I would say part of me does, which a lot of people will never admit.
Right.
But it's probably less than most people. Like I don't really like a lot of attention. You see these guys where they're shirtless down the escalator and they're flexing in public. Like for me, that just seems
waiting on tables. I saw that one the other day. It's like, maybe when I was 19, I don't know. I don't want to think I was that big of a douchebag when I was 19, but maybe I was. I don't know. I probably was. All right, last one. The next time you visit the U.S., can you bring me back a pallet of GH just for me? I'm just kidding. But seriously, any chance? No.
That's actually something I've seen. Someone was
is
like,
that right?
No, someone was like, oh, this guy moved to China to take steroids. I'm like, yeah, because you couldn't do that in the U.S.
Yeah, because we don't have any access to it over here.
And it doesn't even make sense because I've been here 14-ish years and I've only lifted weights 11 years. So they're saying that I moved to China, didn't lift for 3 years, then started lifting.
Getting your sources figured out there.
Yeah, so for a solid decade. Because that's another interesting thing. If I ask people when I hopped on steroids, they're like, oh, this guy's clearly on. I say, okay, so like, when did you think I started? I get like 18 different answers.
Yeah.
Oh, 2018, 2019, 2021, 2020. Oh, 2023. No, here, 2024. Like I'll get, and so, it just doesn't make sense. And I'll see about the palette of GH. I don't even
get back with me on that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure where. I could probably. I probably have some in the pantry somewhere. I could dig it up.
Right behind the cereal box. On that note, Dr. Marv, Geoff, we got to get to getting this Skip, Dr. Marv, GVS splitting. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell. If you didn't like the show, pretend you did. Like, subscribe, share, ring the bell. Anyway, hit the hype button. I guess there's a hype button there. Haven't seen it, but I heard about it. Hit the hype button. Use the TrueNutrition.com link to save 10% on not just Team Skip protein, but everything they sell. You can reach out to Geoffrey Schofield at VerityFitness.com. You can reach out to Dr. Marv at TheEducatedMeathead.com. Clearly, I'm reading to my left. And you can reach out to me at TeamSkip.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to click this link. It'll be there later, Geoff, for another episode of Between Two Dumbbells.